Which cutting board finish actually protects your cutting board? I put 4 of the most popular products through a torture test and the winner shocked me. Cabbage. So I can just see it soaking in. That was great. Welcome back to Madison Creations, where we dive deep into woodworking techniques and products. I have built 4 identical end grain cutting boards out of solid maple and finished each one differently. So today we'll see how Howard cutting board oil, pure tung oil, walrus oil and wood wax, and Osmo Top Oil really perform in your kitchen. I should point out I made my best effort to follow the published instructions for application for each product as close as I could. If I did change the application process, I'll explain it here in the video. But here's how I applied each finish and what I noticed during that process. Okay, so I am starting the first board using the Howard cutting board oil, and later I use the Howard Butcher Block Conditioner. For the oil application, I essentially followed their directions. And their directions simply state, apply generously with a clean, soft cloth. To season a new cutting board, apply at least 2 coats. For a surface over 1.5 inch thick, which these are almost exactly 1.5 inches thick, apply 3 to 4 coats. Let stand at least 1 hour if possible, or overnight. Apply to all sides for even penetration, blah, 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 blah. So basically, it's saying put several coats on, let them stand overnight. You'll see here what I did. I basically did what almost all woodworkers do that finish their boards with mineral oil. And after applying it and seeing it soak in, I decided to just dump a whole bunch in this bucket, and I let the whole board soak in the mineral oil in the Howard cutting board oil overnight. Right, the next cutting board, I use the Walrus Oil Cutting Board Care Kit. So this kit can be used to keep your cutting board refreshed if it's already been finished, or used to finish a new board. So the directions are pretty simple. First, clean the board, light soap, lukewarm water. Allow plenty of time to dry. Remove deep knife cuts if you desire with a sanding pad until the surface feels smooth. Apply a coat of cutting board oil. That's what you see me doing here. It's very similar to the Howard oil, and I will cut a picture in here in a second. The difference is that I could visually see the Walrus oil has a lot more solids in it. Those waxes seem to be more prominent. The Howard, their oil looked almost completely clear, just like pure mineral oil. And the Walrus oil, the cutting board oil, has a lot more solids. It's almost opaque looking. So a lot more waxes going on in there. It says apply a coat of board oil, allow 6 to 12 hours to set. So what I decided to do after I put it on, I had enough in this bottle that I decided to do just like I did with the Howard. And I dumped enough into this plastic bin that it would actually soak. I'm not showing it here, but I basically dumped almost the whole bottle in. All right, and next board is finished with the Wood River Tung Oil, then with a citrus solvent. I'm gonna go ahead and just cut into the audio on this, and I think I talked through the process fairly easily.
I've never done this one, but I have wanted to for quite some time. They say 1 to 1. Got tung oil that the directions say can thin it. Mineral spirits. I'm going to keep everything food safe always for cutting boards, so I'm going with the citrus solvent. Rub it in, thin coats, may soak it up. I've just got a white Scotch pad. And it says, allowed to dry 1 hour between coats overnight before use. They also say if it's been thinned, it's even faster. You go online, you see 2 days, 4 days, 30 days. I'm sticking with following the directions of all the products I'm using. So just get some tung oil into my measuring cup. I have no idea how much I'm gonna need. It's not super thick. It's pretty thick stuff. I would say that's like warm honey. That has to be way more than I need. All right. Oopsies. This stuff is thin. Smells good. Just spilled it all over. This is clear. Smells really good. It's like water. I am making a mess. Woo. All right. Just somewhere. Now I've got to mix this up. Dang. Oh, stir stick. Oh, that's pretty thin. I was wondering how thin that would be, but that is pretty thin. I'm just gonna stir it for like a minute. You can already see it's kind of all coming the same color and consistency. Man, I got whatever. I'm excited about this one because I've heard good things about it. All right. So now I'm just applying it fairly liberally because it's end grain, but it also says keep it thin. Make sure it dries. I'm gonna apply it all over. I made like enough for a wooden boat. It's all right.
All right, so after working the tung oil into the cutting board, I kept it wet for about 5 minutes or so, and it was soaking in pretty good. And then I just wiped all that tung oil off, let it dry overnight, and I ended up applying a total of 3 coats of the thinned tung oil onto this cutting board. All right, last and certainly not least is the Osmo Top Oil. One thing I do want to point out, this product is from Osmo. They have many products, and people are often familiar with like their Pollux, I always call it Pollux, whatever it's called, similar to Rubio and other hard wax oils. People are using that on their furniture. It's a great finish. This is the same company, Osmo, but this is the Top Oil. And the reason that's important is because this is their food safe version. All right, I'll read right from the back of the can. Product description: clear and transparent oil, wax combination, resistant to wine, beer, cola, coffee, tea, fruit juice, water, etc. The dried coating is safe for humans, animals, and plants. Suitable for children's toys, blah, 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 blah. So the directions for use are apply the first coat thinly along the wood grain with an Osmo microfiber, flat brush, or applicator. Allow to dry for approximately 8 to 10 hours. Ventilate while drying. Apply a second coat with an applicator, blah, 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 blah. So it says 2 coats, allow to dry 8 to 10 hours. So I'm going to apply 2 coats just as they describe, and I will let it dry overnight between coats. It's been overnight. Alright, this is, and we'll go in order. Number 1, this was the Howard.
So these soaked for 6 hours in the bin of oil. And then I took them out. I didn't even wipe them off. I just took them out, set them on the tripods. Let them sit. Cool. Number 2 is our tung oil. Dry, smooth. A little blotchy, but could have been the wood. Number 3 is our walrus oil. See, it's still a little wet there. Definitely has more of a waxy surface. Again, soaked it for 6 hours. Took it out, didn't even wipe it, just let it sit all night. So the next step is to buff it. And then number 4 is our Osmo Top Oil. This looks good. I like how the Osmo doesn't seem to have darkened the wood as much as the others. Take a look at that. So that is the walrus oil. We'll compare that to the Osmo.
Right about here is where I realized I was going to have trouble keeping these boards straight and in order and remembering which one was finished with what. So I threw each one into my X-Tool P2 laser and decided to label them. All right, so here I'm doing the second step of the Howard process. This is the butcher block conditioner. Follow the directions. I believe I did 3 different coats of butcher block conditioner, letting it set for several hours in between coats, wiping it off, and then reapplying. Okay, and finally, the last step of the preparation of these 4 boards is to do the second part of the Walrus Oil cutting board care kit, and that is to apply the Walrus Oil Wood Wax. I just do this with a rubber glove. I work it into the grain, massage it into the wood. Instructions say to let it sit for 15 minutes and then buff it off. So that is exactly what I did. And we are finally done with the finishing process and moving on to the testing phase of this experiment. As you can see, all 4 boards are finished beautifully. They're completely water resistant, water repellent. I've done nothing to these. They have sat and cured for about 48 hours since the last finishing step. Okay, this is where my daughter was allowed to use one of the test pieces to cut a few vegetables for our other cooking and barbecue YouTube channel. But I assure you, the minimal cutting she did on this board did not impact the test results whatsoever.
All right. You're using one of our test cutting boards for our other YouTube channel, right?
Yes, and if you want to learn more about us and our family, you can also watch another channel that I also am on some of the episodes. And I really hope you watch it.
What channel is that?
Madison Creations.
Madison Creations. That's good.
So please subscribe and
right.
watch all our episodes.
Doing awesome.
If you really like building stuff, I think it would be a good channel for you. Because basically all it is is building stuff.
Next, I put these boards through a real world stress test. 30 seconds of knife work, followed by 30 seconds of scrubbing with soap and water, then rinsing. Did this 5 times each. I wanted to repeat what our household cutting board goes through every week, if not more. So I chopped, then I chopped, then I chopped, then I sliced, then I sliced, then I sliced. And then I scrubbed, and 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 I scrubbed. I think I can probably speed this up. But first, let's look at this after just the first cycle.
Interesting.
first washing, literally the very first washing, you can see, hopefully, on the Walrus Oil, it's kind of already soaking in. Where on the Osmo, the water is still beating up. Tung Oil is beating a little, but I'm gonna go ahead and say the Top Oil is the only one that, even after the first cutting and washing, has water beating on the top. Talk about these a little bit. These, after the cutting and testing, have been drying for about 72 hours. So they're completely dry now. I just want to talk about my observations. So I did 5 rounds of cutting, chopping, slicing for 30 seconds, then washing with soap and water for 30 seconds. I washed the whole board, top, bottom, sides. And this is where we're at. The Howard doesn't show the knife marks, which is cool, but this feels just like wood. I mean, this is, you can, I don't know if you can hear that. You can feel like the glue seams because the wood seems to have moved a little. Like it literally feels like raw wood. I'm not sure how much protection is there. As a matter of fact, as I'm saying this, I want to look. Kind of looks like, I might be wrong. I just noticed. It's also cupped ever so slightly. I don't know if you can see it. It's not as bad as I thought it was, but there is a bow in there. So I just don't know how much protection there was there. We'll do this next test to see. The Tung Oil and citrus feels a little better. It does kind of feel like it's slightly protected. You can see the knife marks a little bit. I was worried about the citrus scent. That's not really there, so that's gone. This kind of looks like it might have cupped a little too. Maybe it's just these boards. Nope. That one's pretty straight. So I would say this is better than the Howard for sure. Feels pretty smooth. Does feel like raw wood. I wouldn't be able to tell there was a finish on it right now. Third one, the Walrus Oil. I would say this is comparative to the Tung Oil. It feels pretty good. You can barely see the knife marks, which is kind of nice. The sides feel rough, so they weren't protected much. We'll see how much protection is actually in the wood. It feels okay, but it does feel like raw wood. Can't tell if this one's cupped, not that it matters. Nope. Now this was the surprise right here. The Top Oil, Osmo Top Oil. You can see the knife marks in it more, which doesn't bother me. It's a cutting board. You're gonna see knife marks in it no matter what. But it still feels like it totally has a layer of protection on it. It's smooth. It's obviously a little rougher where the knife marks are, but it feels like it's still protected. And this is, again, primarily from the washing with soap and water. These all feel super rough on the sides, and this totally feels like it still has a finish. It feels sealed off. I'm curious to see how the next test goes with the Top Oil, because right now Top Oil honestly is winning. All right, what I'm doing for this part, again, all the knife cuts are on the top here. All I've done on the bottoms is wash it with soap and water 5 times, 30 seconds each time. I'm gonna flip these upside down, so this surface is only washed, never cut on. I'm gonna do a couple tests,
See what we end up with. First one's just a water test. See what happens. All right, so that's sit for about 5 minutes. You can already tell the Howards, it's soaking in. Tung Oil seems to be fairly well protected. Walrus Oil seems pretty well protected. And the Osmo Top Oil, it's literally beat it up. It tightened up and beat it up. It's not soaking in at all. But we'll let that sit for about 5 minutes. Okay, water test. My 5-minute timer just went off. And I once again have been quite surprised by the results. Let me see if I can get you in closer to see some of this. All right, so the first one is the Howard. Really no surprise here. Not only did that water not beat up, it is completely soaked in and almost dried. I don't even know if I can get an angle on it. The water was here, and it is, I mean, it's totally soaked in. I'm going to jump over to the Walrus Oil because it is about half soaked in. You can see there's some water beating up a little bit here, but this is all soaked into the grain already. See if I can get an angle on that. There you can see, there you go. You can see how that's almost completely soaked in, except for that spot there. The Howards just soaked in. Now, the Tung Oil with citrus, I didn't make as big of a spot here, so this is the same size that it started. It tightened up and beat it up, and it's just there. It has not soaked into the grain from what I can see at all. So Tung Oil did a surprisingly good job. And the Osmo Top Oil, same thing. Look at this. Literally the water beat it up and has not soaked in from what I can see at all. Hasn't spread out at all. So Osmo and Tung Oil are definitely victorious here. The oil and wax treatments, not doing so well. Howard, I would say doing poor. I now would never use this. Walrus Oil, it is doing its job, but it's also soaking in quite a bit. On to the next test. Next is going to be the faithful staining test. I just want to see how much this soaks in. I'm going to cut these in half in the end just to see, you know, what's penetrated, what it looks like. I have no idea what happens inside a cutting board. That's part of the reason I'm doing this. So this is just coffee. Everybody's favorite Best Dad Ever mug. Simply set it here. Pick it up, give it a shake. Set it on the board. I can just see it soaking in. That was great. All right. So I'll just leave that there for about 10 seconds. Actually, I'll get scientific. I'll do a minute on each one. 1 minute starting now. So this has been sitting about 4 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes fresh. Just pick it up and see what we got here. As expected, the Howard oil is just, I mean, it's soaked in completely.
Doesn't really look stained, I guess. I thought it'd be more stained, but. So the Howard oil, completely soaked in. I'm crossing this one off the list, even though I'll keep testing it. Tung oil actually is starting to soak in as well. The water beat it up. The coffee, it's in a different spot. I don't know why it would be different, but it is. Except for this area here, it's pretty much soaked in. So that is interesting. Coffee has penetrated that finish. It's almost completely soaked in. All right, walrus oil. This has been soaking for about 3 minutes to 4 minutes. Yeah, also pretty much soaked in. You can see this spot right here. It's pooled up a little. Everything else completely penetrated the grain, has been absorbed by the cutting board. I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna turn this off for 5 minutes and we'll check the top oil. Okay, so it's been 5 or 6 minutes since I set the coffee onto the Osmo Top Oil sample. And you can see there's a couple areas where it's slowly beginning to penetrate, but more or less, this is all still beaded up on the surface. Which is pretty impressive. So Osmo Top Oil appears to be still winning. On to one of my final tests. Final experiment. This is a cutting board, not a coaster. So I opened up our fridge and tried to find something that would stain the most. And what I came up with is cabbage marinated in beet juice. I don't know why we have this, but it sounded like something that would be great for a stain test. It smells pretty good. Huh. It's actually pretty good. Interesting. So what I'm gonna do is take this with plenty of its juice. I'm gonna put a little ball of it. I'm gonna dig it from the bottom of the bag. I'm gonna put a clump inside each of little coffee ring here from earlier. I'm gonna let it sit for some amount of time. I don't know what. A little dab of cabbage. Oh yeah, that's good and juicy. A little dab of cabbage. Oh yeah. A little more. A dab of cabbage. Let's not be shy with the Osmo sample. A little dab of cabbage. What the hell? Let's get crazy here. Pour a little beet juice on each one. Well, these aren't real cutting boards from what I've seen so far. This could be ugly. Uh-oh. Oh well. So, I'm gonna let this sit for a ridiculous amount of time, probably unrealistic. Let's say 10 minutes. That seems fairly realistic. I'm gonna let this sit for 10 minutes. We'll see what happens. Okay. It has been 15 minutes for these. There's juice everywhere. I don't really know the best way to clean this up. I was gonna do 10, got distracted. It's been exactly 15 now. I'm just gonna clean these up here. Just dumping off the schmutz. Whatever it is. Okay. Ooh, this one's gonna.
said earlier, you could see a difference between feel the difference. Yeah. All right. So there's not really much to talk about here. This is to see how far the stain penetrates. As expected from the other tests, this is soaking in. This is the Howard Tung Oil. Those appear to be soaking in spots, but it's actually beaded up pretty well on the surface still. Walrus Oil is starting to spread out and soak in, but it's staying on the surface quite well. And then the Top Oil, it's just staying on the surface. So fresh towel and see what happens. Wipe this up. This is just a dry towel. All right, so let's take a look at this. Not that it's telling us a whole lot, but still kind of interesting. So this is the Howard's. Definitely stained, definitely soaked in. Tung Oil actually stained pretty good. It appears to have anyway, soaked in where it was real damp. Better look at that. Walrus Oil, also stained. Ooh, heavy. And the Osmo Top Oil, definitely a little staining, but as with all the other tests, less significant than the other examples for sure. All right, so it has been over 2 weeks. These have been drying out. So there's the Howard Tung Oil, Top Oil, Walrus Oil. Let's check these out. The other side has the coffee stain, the beet juice stain. That's the Howard Tung Oil, coffee stain, juice stain. A little lighter, actually significantly lighter when you look at both of those. Walrus Oil, coffee stain, juice stain throughout. I'd say those two are pretty similar. And the Osmo Top Oil, I don't even know if I can get that little mark there is not part of it. Can't really see the coffee stain. You can see a little bit of juice stain, maybe a little coffee ring right here, but significantly less staining on that Top Oil. Pretty cool. And these all feel about the same. This Howard's pretty rough. This actually does feel like it still has some finish on it for the Tung Oil and the Walrus Oil. Howard feels the worst, but the Osmo Top Oil still feels like it's finished. I mean, it's smooth, it's not rough. Even the sides, completely smooth. Feels just like a finish, where if you rub this one, the Howard, it's rough. All right, so the final test. I'm just curious. I'm gonna chop these in half at the miter saw and see what's penetrated into the wood. I've never cut an end grain cutting board in half after finishing it, so let's see what we got. All right, so now I've cut them in half. Honestly, this is pretty anticlimactic. Howard, the stains are on the bottom, so here the stains are facing us. Really you can't tell that anything's penetrated there.
Tung oil, even around this, can't tell anything's penetrated there. Walrus oil. You just can't, I don't know why I expected more. I always talk about how everything sucks into the straws of the grain, etc. Just not seeing it. So, top oil here. I would say this doesn't tell us anything. All right, the results are in. We have, I think, a clear winner, and I think we have a clear loser. We have a couple kind of falling in the middle, so let's review real quick. Spoiler alert, mineral oil-based finishing systems for high-use items like kitchen utensils, cutting boards, I'm not a big fan of, and they did not perform very well. Start with the Howards. You already saw how it's stained. It is not moisture resistant at all. It is not repelling any water. It's soaking in here. Probably would not use this system. Maybe it's good for touching up occasionally, but I would probably just avoid it. I really like the Howard's refinishing products. I use those quite often. For cutting boards, probably wouldn't use it. The other one is the Walrus Oil. This, as you saw, also stained. It's not repelling much moisture after our testing. It does feel pretty rough. It feels better than the Howard's board, but still, I don't think it's doing its job on the cutting board anymore. I really like Walrus Oil products. I really like the company. The people I've met in person are fantastic. I think as a woodworker, this would be a fantastic system. I would just have to reapply it frequently. And the whole purpose of this test was to see, okay, as a woodworker, as a business owner, if I'm providing products such as cutting boards to clients and customers, what is their end user experience? They shouldn't have to be worrying about the condition of their cutting board just a couple weeks after they receive it. So I would not use Walrus Oil in that situation. Now, one of the surprises for me was the Tung Oil thinned with citrus. This feels pretty good still, and this did repel moisture better than the mineral oil based finishes. However, it's not as good as the winner. Another spoiler alert, the last one remaining, the Osmo. I'm curious, and let me know in the comments if you want me to. I'll make some more boards and do a part 2. If I would have applied more coats of this and let it dry longer, if the Tung Oil would have performed almost as well. Right now I'm calling it second place. First place, clear winner, the Osmo Top Oil. It still feels, the sides, bottom, even the top's a little rough because of all the knife marks I put on here, but it still feels like a finished product. It's still repelling moisture. It still looks good. It did not darken as much as the others. So if this was an inlaid cutting board and you wanted to maintain the colors of all the woods you put in there, you would want to consider what is your finish going to do to those woods, because this is much lighter than this and it's the exact same board. So clear winner, Osmo Top Oil. Thanks for watching. Leave a comment below what you think if you've ever used this. Would love to do a part 2 if I need to put Tung Oil head to head against the Top Oil with a different finishing process. But for now, I think I'm going to use the Osmo Top Oil for the best end user / customer experience. Again, thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.